Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Mountain Blade Bannerlord running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now this is with the 16 gigabytes of RAM. Last time we tested this game out on here, it was with only 8. And this is currently running at 1080p with the absolute lowest possible graphics settings. Now, the game supports DLSS, but unfortunately it doesn't have FSR, and I think FSR would have been a lifesaver here because the performance that you get in this game at these settings at 1080p is just not acceptable. Now, things are running in slow motion right now just because of the fact that, you know, I'm giving commands and stuff. And one thing I gotta say, playing this on this HP Pavilion laptop was one of the worst gaming experiences I've ever had on this system. Not because of the way that this was performing, and to be fair, the performance numbers that we're getting aren't amazing or anything like that, but the biggest pain in the ass was this button right here next to the escape key. That question mark right there, you want to know what that does? You push that, it opens up the Edge browser and it looks up how to get help in Windows. What is this useful for? Who is this for? It's already annoying enough that I have to hit the function key as well as starting to hit F1 through whatever number I need to try to play this game, but the fact that right next to the escape key there is a button that will minimize the game and open up a web browser is the most ridiculously engineered thing I've ever seen on any system. It is the most useless button and it's right next to the escape key. I've accidentally pressed it so many times, it is infuriating. I mean, the performance that you get out of this at 1080p is not absolutely awful, but I would recommend dropping the resolution down to 900p or 720p, but really the game just becomes so hideous at that point that I realistically would not play it on here. But if you're going to actually play this game on this laptop, please, for the love of God, use an external keyboard, because you are going to just want to bash your head into the wall trying to play this game with those terrible function keys. And I mean, if you look at the performance that we're getting right now, 1% lows are dropping under 30. We are just getting some pretty bad numbers here and there. It's not exactly going to be the greatest experience playing the game. So overall, I would just say this is a skip overall on here unless you're really willing to drop the resolution down to 720p. 900p really did not help the 1% lows as much as I was hoping it would. I didn't even show it because the numbers were just still way too close to each other to really just justify throwing it in there. 720p just looks so bad that I really did not play it for very long at all. So overall, I just had a very bad experience playing this game on this laptop. It's definitely one of those things where if you're using this hooked up to an external monitor, you have your dedicated mouse and keyboard, you're gonna have a perfectly fine time. But it was the fact that I was using the internal keyboard and, you know, an external mouse that made the experience of playing this want to just bash my head into the wall, because it was annoying how while I was playing the game there would be those moments where I would just hit the wrong button, or I'm over here trying to look at what the function number actually was on the keys, because on the laptop they have, you know, like the visible icons, and then the number, like the function number, is just a tiny little thing in the corner of the keycaps themselves. So the fact that they're also not backlit made it very, very difficult to try to do anything, especially having to hold the function key and then try to look for whatever actual function number I needed. For this kind of game, you want a dedicated keyboard. Anybody who is going to try to tough it out like this is just asking for a bad time. In terms of the RAM upgrade though, those 16 gigabytes of RAM are being put to use here because we are using almost 9 gigabytes of RAM, and this is running at the lowest graphics settings. So we are still using more than those 8 gigabytes. And remember, when we had 8 gigabytes, about half of that was being eaten up by the system. So here Windows has more than enough RAM that it needs, and the game is perfectly happy with the amount of RAM that it's getting. Unfortunately, it's not really translating into anything notable in terms of performance, because as the combat starts to pick up, the game really just starts to fall apart. And actually, you'll see right here, I accidentally hit that F1 key, and it was just infuriating how many times that actually ended up happening. I don't know why that button exists. Whoever came up with the idea of that button should, at best, just get fired. At worst, they need to be tried at the Geneva Convention, because that has to be a war crime. I mean, the existence of that button is legitimately an act of terrorism, because in what world do you need to look up exactly that phrase on Bing? That's another thing. It's forcing you to, 1, use Edge, and 2, use Bing, and to look up how to get help in Windows. That is about the most useless thing you could possibly do. And you put that on the F1 button. I can't even really talk about the game too much just because I'm so tilted by the experience of trying to play on here. But I guess that's really the point of this. It's just to let you know what the experience is actually like using these things. And for this specific HP Pavilion laptop, and it is a model that is used across a lot of different product lines from HP. So there's a good chance if you're a budget laptop shopper, you are looking at this chassis. And if you see that button in the F1, just know that it will be the bane of your existence. I mean, the game is playable in a lot of parts at 1080p, and again, if you drop the resolution, you are going to get slightly better performance, and it overall is going to be a consistent experience. But it's just one of those things where I couldn't continue to play this game on this system, at least not like this. And like I a lot of the times try to avoid using, you know, like external peripherals that are going to be out of the reach for most people. Like a mouse, I understand, because you're going to be using a mouse for pretty much every game, you know, like there's no one out there that's really playing with a trackpad. At least I hope not. I remember in high school, I had a girlfriend who her brother would play TF2 on his laptop with a trackpad. It was insane. I don't know how he did that. You know, I guess it was just one of those things where it's just like, he just did not have a mouse. I don't know why he didn't bother to just buy like a $20 mouse on Amazon, but that's what he used. And I mean, he enjoyed playing the game like that. So I guess those people do exist. Just one of those things where I don't know why anyone would want to do that. Mice are cheap and they really don't take up a lot of space. I can understand somebody not having a full dedicated keyboard or anything like that though. Or like using an external 144 hertz monitor, you know, like I will sometimes do that for certain games, especially if they perform really well on here. But for the most part, I try to avoid using any of those because I feel like a lot of people who are in the market for these kinds of laptops aren't exactly the kind of people that are going to have like a full desktop setup for their laptop. So I try to just keep using internal keyboards, using internal displays and all of that. And unfortunately, you run into games like this where you need to be able to use the function keys and it is just going to be a nightmare. But anyways, I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe and I will see you guys in the next one where hopefully I don't get as tilted.